What happens when an advanced alien fleet underestimates the seemingly primitive humans of Earth? In a distant corner of the galaxy, a powerful interstellar alliance sends its fleet to observe humanity, but they have no idea what they're about to face. With humanity's hidden weaponry, including devastating railguns, Earth is about to show the galaxy that it's no longer the underdog. Can the aliens survive the brutal onslaught, or will humanity's ingenuity write the rules of galactic warfare? The Council of Unified Species had been observing humanity for decades. They had long since cataloged Earth as an insignificant planet, home to a species with limited potential. The Sol system was barely on the galactic map, marked as a point of interest due to the rapid development of technology observed on the blue and green planet. It was the kind of curiosity the Council watched from the safety of its well-established dominion, sending fleets not for conquest but for simple observation. No one had expected anything more than a few rudimentary probes from Earth, launching missiles that fell short of interplanetary ambitions. After all, how could a species that hadn't even mastered space travel be of concern? From their position in the far reaches of the Kuiper Belt, the fleet kept a watchful eye. Their sensors, capable of detecting even the faintest energy signatures, had been monitoring humanity's progress for years. Earth's early space missions were clumsy at best, with small crews traveling in poorly constructed vessels. Humanity's weapons, as analyzed by the Council, were more brutal than sophisticated, nothing but crude explosives and outdated projectile weapons that couldn't even rival the Council's worst outdated models. The fleet commander, a high-ranking ardent of the Galactic Council, looked down upon Earth's growing technological advancements with quiet disdain. Humanity had begun constructing enormous orbital stations, but nothing about them hinted at any substantial military capability. To the ardent, Earth was still a fledgling civilization, fragile and easily contained. Their weapons designed for simple planetary defense were nothing more than primitive guns aimed at the void. The idea that humanity could present any meaningful challenge to galactic order was laughable. Their space stations and ships, built with raw brute force, seemed more like oversized toys than tools of war. But there was something else, a pattern. Despite the relative simplicity of humanity's technology, there was an unmistakable and unusual rhythm to their efforts. Where many civilizations would have stagnated, humanity constantly adapted and innovated, pushing forward faster than expected. Even when faced with the failure of previous projects, they found new solutions, new ways to overcome the limitations of their environment. It was as though Earth was a forge constantly evolving, always trying to improve its creations. The Council found this unsettling. There was something about humanity's resilience and creativity that didn't fit into the neat little boxes they had built for lesser species. Yet, nothing prepared the fleet for the discovery of a new anomaly, a signal originating from the far reaches of the solar system. Initial scans identified an anomaly beneath the ice of Europa, one that had eluded detection for centuries. The signal wasn't quite like anything the Council had encountered before. A faint hum, barely perceptible, yet unmistakably artificial. The Ardent ordered an immediate investigation. As the fleet moved into position, cloaked and hidden from the view of Earth's primitive sensors, they studied the anomaly with interest. They had long suspected that humanity was on the cusp of discovering something ancient, something dangerous. It was clear now that the humans weren't just exploring space, they were unlocking the secrets of the galaxy itself. But the true threat wasn't in the artifact they sought to uncover. The true danger lay in the humans' ability to adapt and turn their crude technology into something far more lethal. The Council remained unaware, however, of what awaited them. Humanity, as always, was one step ahead. The real question wasn't how the humans would respond to the Council's presence, but how they had learned to wield their own brand of destructive ingenuity. The artifact beneath Europa's ice was unlike anything the Council had encountered in their long history. It emanated a faint but unmistakable energy signature, ancient yet strangely familiar. When the signal first appeared, it was dismissed as an anomaly, a glitch in the scanning systems, perhaps a solar flare or a passing comet. But as the fleet scientists analyzed it further, they quickly realized it was something more, something deliberate, something older than anything the Council had ever cataloged. The decision to investigate was swift. The fleet had already been tasked with observing humanity, but this discovery altered everything. The artifact could hold the answers to questions that had eluded even the most advanced civilizations for millennia. It might even offer new technologies, long forgotten by the original species that had created it. This was an opportunity to rewrite galactic history, a chance for the Council to expand its dominance and influence across the stars. Yet there was a problem. Earth's space agencies, seemingly unaware of the artifact's true significance, were closing in on Europa. Humanity's exploration efforts had recently become bolder, and the mining vessel Vanguard, a relatively modest spacecraft, was now headed straight toward the site. The Council fleet had expected Earth's scientific expeditions to be of little consequence after all. The humans had only begun to venture beyond their home planet. But the unexpected proximity of the Vanguard threatened to disrupt the quiet operation. The Council couldn't allow the humans to stumble upon the artifact before they could fully assess its value. A small team of reconnaissance ships was dispatched to intercept the Vanguard. The mission was simple: disable the human vessel without drawing attention, secure the artifact, and return to the fleet for analysis. The fleet's commanders believed this to be a straightforward task. Humans were far from capable of dealing with the sophisticated weaponry at the Council's disposal. As the Vanguard approached the icy surface of Europa, the Council's cloaked ships moved silently behind it. The humans had no idea what was coming. The Council had studied Earth's communications networks, and their protocols were predictable. The Vanguard's crew was focused solely on the artifact, unaware that they were being shadowed by the most advanced fleet the galaxy had ever known. The Council struck first, sending a pulse weapon to disable the Vanguard's power systems. The electromagnetic blast was enough to fry the human ship's electronics, rendering it motionless. The crew inside would have no way of knowing what had hit them, let alone fight back. The Council's operatives prepared to board the Vanguard, confident they would easily secure the ship and its crew. They would extract whatever human data they could, then move on to claim the artifact. Yet, in the moments before their boarding action could begin, something unexpected occurred. The Vanguard sent out an automated distress signal to Earth, a signal that bypassed the Council's attempts to block it. The Council fleet was not prepared for the consequences. Within moments, Earth's defense networks began to react, and the Council commanders realized with dawning horror that their stealth operation had not gone unnoticed. The humans had already begun to respond. A dangerous and unfamiliar feeling washed over the Council fleet, a sense of urgency, mixed with a growing realization that they had underestimated humanity. The artifact was still within their grasp, but for the first time, the Council felt uncertainty. They had expected to be the predators, but it seemed that this time they had walked into a trap set by the humans themselves. The only question left now was whether the Council could complete their mission before the human response arrived, or if they would be forced to deal with a species far more resourceful than they had ever imagined. The Council fleet, confident in its technological superiority, was unprepared for the turn of events that followed. Despite the sudden disruption of their operation, they pressed on, believing that their advanced weaponry and the sheer size of their ships would easily overpower any human attempt at resistance. After all, Earth's technology was still primitive compared to their own, and their warships, if they even had any, were far inferior in both design and capability. The presence of the artifact was their priority, and the Vanguard was only a minor inconvenience, easily swept aside. However, as the Council ships continued to move into position, something unexpected occurred. A series of projectiles, large and unassuming, began to approach the fleet at incredible speed. Initially, the observers dismissed them as space debris, remnants of humanity's poorly constructed satellites, or the wreckage from failed missions. But as the objects closed in, they began to track their trajectory more closely. The ship's sensors activated, calculating the velocity and mass of the incoming objects. The readings were clear. These weren't random space rocks or junk, they were projectiles, and they were headed straight for the Council fleet. The Council commanders initially thought it was a mistake. How could humans have developed a weapon capable of firing projectiles with such precision? Their starships were equipped with energy shields capable of deflecting even the most sophisticated plasma attacks, and they were confident that nothing short of a direct hit from a capital ship's weapons could pose a serious threat. But what they didn't realize was that the human projectiles weren't just large, they were incredibly dense, and they were traveling at speeds that far exceeded anything the Council had encountered in their long history. Before they could respond, the first of the projectiles hit the flagship's shield. The impact was jarring, though the shield held. The crew felt a strange vibration ripple through the ship, but nothing more until the next strike came. It was then that the reality of the situation began to set in. The projectiles were not just large, they were moving at near light speed, and their sheer kinetic energy was enough to push against the limits of the Council's advanced shielding technology. Each subsequent impact caused a crack in the shield, destabilizing it further. The fleet was thrown into chaos. The first cruiser to be hit was completely incapacitated, its energy shields failing in the blink of an eye, leaving it exposed to a barrage of further projectiles. The massive hull of the ship was punctured, and the ship's reactor exploded in a fiery burst. The Council had never seen anything like it. These projectiles, these crude human weapons, had pierced their shields with terrifying efficiency. The Council fleet scrambled to regroup, but it was too late. The humans had deployed more of these railgun projectiles, and they were coming from multiple directions. The strategic placement of Earth's defenses, scattered across orbital stations and hidden satellite platforms, allowed the humans to target the fleet with precision. Even worse, the projectiles were equipped with highly advanced guidance systems, meaning the humans had more control over their weaponry than the Council had anticipated. In the chaos, a growing realization spread throughout the fleet. They had greatly underestimated humanity's ability to defend itself. The idea that humans could wield such powerful weaponry was unthinkable to the Council, especially considering the simplicity of their technology. But here, in the cold reaches of the solar system, humanity had proven that their ingenuity, if nothing else, was a force to be reckoned with. The weapons, though crude by the standards of galactic warfare, were devastatingly effective against the Council's shielded shield. For the first time since their fleet had arrived in the Sol system, the Council fleet commanders began to question their assumptions. Could they have miscalculated? Was humanity truly as primitive as they had thought, or had they been building something far more dangerous hidden beneath the surface? Whatever the answer, one thing was clear: Earth was not the helpless target they had once believed it to be, and the battle had only just begun. The Council fleet was reeling from the unexpected barrage. Ships that had once sailed through space with the ease of a predator now found themselves under fire from the most unlikely source: humanity. The projectiles, simple but incredibly effective, had shattered the false sense of security the Council had built around themselves. The first wave had been devastating, but it was only the beginning. The humans weren't just reacting, they were executing a precise and calculated assault, a methodical dismantling of the Council's superiority. The Council's first response was to regroup, sending all available ships into defensive formations. They deployed their advanced energy shields in full force, the shimmering barriers of light enveloping the ships like protective armor. Yet, to their growing horror, the railgun projectiles kept coming, relentless in their pursuit. Despite their best efforts to adjust, the projectiles found their marks with terrifying consistency. Each impact seemed to further cripple their defenses, pushing the limits of their technology in ways the fleet's commanders had never imagined. The shields faltered under the pressure, and even the hulls of the ships began to show signs of damage. The second volley came even faster than the first. The projectiles, now detected by the fleet's sensors as highly specialized and terrifyingly precise, tore through the defensive grids one by one. What made these human weapons so effective wasn't just their speed or size, but the sheer mass of each projectile, which had been designed to pierce the shield technology the Council relied on. The force behind each impact was enough to shake entire vessels, destabilizing their reactors and systems. The fleet's flagship, a massive warship capable of taking on the mightiest of foes, was hit squarely in the reactor chamber. It shuddered violently before a catastrophic explosion erupted, sending debris scattering in every direction. Panic spread through the fleet. The enemy, whom they had once considered insignificant, had managed to damage the very ships that had once been impervious to anything short of a direct hit from a capital ship's weaponry. What had started as a minor annoyance had now escalated into an existential crisis. The fleet's leaders scrambled to regain control, ordering evasive maneuvers and deploying countermeasures. But the human projectiles were faster, more accurate, and seemingly endless. The Council's ships couldn't outrun, nor could they shield themselves effectively enough. to prevent the damage that was rapidly mounting. As the attacks continued, the Council commanders realized they had no counter to this new form of warfare. Their weapons, designed for energy-based combat, were useless against the relentless barrage of railgun slugs that continued to rain down from multiple directions. It wasn't just their ships that were in danger, it was their very understanding of combat. This was not a battle of starships exchanging plasma blasts. This was a brutal, raw form of warfare that the Council had never encountered before, a form that relied on sheer kinetic force rather than sophisticated technology. In the midst of the chaos, a disturbing realization settled in. The humans had planned this. This wasn't just a series of lucky shots or isolated defenses. Earth had deployed a network of railgun platforms across the solar system, all synchronized to strike at the Council fleet's weaknesses. The humans had been preparing for this moment far longer than the fleet had realized. The attacks weren't random, they were a coordinated strategy that had been put into motion the moment the first Council ship crossed into the solar system. And now, with every passing minute, it became clear that humanity wasn't simply defending its planet, it was actively trying to repel an invasion. The Council, which had once considered Earth a primitive world of no consequence, was now facing a level of resistance they were wholly unprepared for. Every attempt to retaliate was met with yet another wave of railgun fire, and as more ships fell under the assault, the fleet began to realize that they were not just fighting a battle for control, they were fighting to survive. The Council had underestimated humanity's ingenuity and resilience, and the results were becoming increasingly disastrous. What had begun as a quiet observation mission was now spiraling into a full-scale conflict, one in which the observers were learning, too late, just how dangerous this seemingly primitive species could be. The situation aboard the Council fleet had grown increasingly dire. The humans whom they had expected to be little more than a nuisance had proved themselves to be far more dangerous than anticipated. The Council's ships were heavily damaged, and their advanced energy shields, which had once been nearly invulnerable, were no longer capable of withstanding the devastating force of the human railgun projectiles. What had begun as a subtle reconnaissance mission had now escalated into a desperate struggle for survival. As the fleet continued to retreat deeper into the outer reaches of the solar system, away from the relentless assault, the Council commanders debated their next move. The human defenses were too strong, the railgun platforms scattered across Earth's orbit, and the asteroid belt were too well coordinated, and the projectiles kept coming. There seemed to be no end to the human ingenuity that powered their assault. Even with their superior numbers and technology, the Council found themselves on the defensive, their ships battered, and their morale shattered. In a last-ditch effort to turn the tide, the fleet commanders ordered the deployment of their heaviest artillery. These weapons, designed for planetary bombardment, had not been used in centuries. They were a drastic measure, a sign of the Council's desperation. With the full force of their remaining ships, the fleet launched a massive counteroffensive aimed at destroying the human railgun platforms and silencing Earth's defenses once and for all. The first wave of energy blasts surged toward Earth's orbital defenses, cutting through the emptiness of space with blinding speed. Each blast was a colossal display of power, designed to obliterate entire stations in a single strike. But to the Council's growing horror, the human platforms fought back. Despite the overwhelming energy output of the Council's weapons, the railguns continued to fire, their projectiles slamming into the Council ships with pinpoint accuracy. The battle raged on, but for the first time, the fleet's commanders began to realize the truth. This was no longer a battle between advanced galactic civilizations. This was a fight for survival, and humanity was playing a game they had no intention of losing. The humans' countermeasures were as surprising as their weapons. They had designed their railguns not only to target the fleet, but also to adjust to the Council's offensive tactics. As the Council unleashed wave after wave of bombardment, the humans' automated defense systems adapted, shifting their firepower to counter each new threat. The once unthinkable concept of Earth fighting back had become a reality, and the fleet's commanders, with each passing moment, found themselves struggling to keep up with the sheer complexity of the human defense network. The Council had made a critical error in underestimating humanity's capacity for innovation. Their approach had been too simplistic, too reliant on overwhelming firepower and superior technology. But the humans had proven that even the most primitive of weapons, when wielded with cunning and foresight, could become a formidable force. The railguns, designed for planetary defense, had become the very weapon that threatened the existence of the Council fleet. They were no longer just projectiles. They were a symbol of humanity's unexpected brilliance of force, capable of turning the tide of war in an instant. With each passing moment, the battle became more intense. Ships were destroyed, damaged, or forced into retreat, and the fleet's once dominant position began to collapse. The human counterattack was relentless, and the Council was left scrambling to adapt. What had begun as a mission to observe and contain humanity had now evolved into an all-out war, and the fleet's commanders could no longer ignore the undeniable truth. Humanity was no longer the underdog in this fight. The Council had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. The once pristine confidence of the Council fleet was now a distant memory. The invincible warships, armed with energy-based weapons and towering in size and power, were being torn apart by what the humans had managed to create: simple yet devastating railguns. The Council had thought their technology would outmatch anything humanity could muster. They had underestimated the raw ingenuity of the human spirit, and now they were paying the price. As the battle raged on, the fleet's commanders began to realize that they had no clear path to victory. Their most advanced warships, crippled by successive railgun strikes, had already sustained irreparable damage. Entire sectors of their ships were venting atmosphere, and essential systems navigation, communication, and even their weapons were failing. The precise, calculated assaults from Earth's defense platforms had rendered their superior technologies useless. The few remaining ships attempted to regroup, trying desperately to reorganize their defenses and coordinate a counterattack, but there was no time. Every moment the humans pushed forward, undeterred, relentless in their pursuit of survival. The remaining Council fleet attempted to fight back, firing their weapons at Earth's defenses with fury, trying to break through the network of railgun platforms that had turned the tide of the battle. But even as they launched volley after volley of plasma bolts, the humans adapted. The stations that had once been simply part of Earth's infrastructure were now operating as a sophisticated network, efficiently responding to the Council's attacks with precision. The railguns continued their onslaught, and the Council fleet continued to suffer. In the heat of the conflict, it became apparent that the Council could not win. Their primary strategy, based on overwhelming firepower, had failed in the face of humanity's resilience. The few remaining ships that weren't yet destroyed were beginning to retreat, a bitter acknowledgement that the humans had not only defended their home, they had repelled an invading force with far less advanced technology. The Council's leaders, once so sure of their superiority, now faced an existential threat to their fleet, their position, and their very understanding of interstellar warfare. As the remaining Council ships retreated toward the outer system, damaged and disorganized, the humans did not relent. Their counteroffensive had turned the tables, and now it was the Council fleet that was being hunted. Earth's defensive systems were operating at full capacity, tracking every remaining Council ship, adjusting their fire in real time, and maintaining a constant barrage of railgun fire. The fleet's retreat was a desperate scramble, with ships veering erratically in an attempt to escape the human projectiles that pursued them with almost unnatural precision. The Council, in a last-ditch effort, attempted to activate their most advanced weapon, a powerful energy disruptor designed to cripple the defense networks of any enemy planet. But even as they prepared to unleash this final weapon, they were intercepted by an unexpected force of fleet of human ships, hastily constructed and sent to engage the retreating Council fleet. These ships, though small and unrefined compared to the Council's warships, were equipped with the same railgun technology that had crippled the flagship. The Council fleet had been cornered. Their pride, their arrogance, and their sense of superiority had all led them to this moment. The human ships, despite their apparent lack of sophistication, had proven to be a force capable of bringing even the mightiest of galactic powers to its knees. The fleet commanders, who had once expected to return to the Council with a victory over humanity, now found themselves struggling to escape a relentless onslaught that they could no longer evade. In those final moments, the fleet's commanders were forced to make a choice: continue their retreat, risking total annihilation, or make one last stand against the relentless human defense. It was a decision that would not come easy, as the once great council fleet, now battered and broken, had to face the reality they had long tried to deny. Humanity had won. The invaders, once so sure of their dominance, had been beaten by the very species they had considered inferior. The humans had proven, once and for all, that they would not be pushed aside. The final moments of the council fleet's retreat were nothing short of chaotic. The once mighty warships, crippled and disorganized, continued their hasty flight through the outer reaches of the solar system, but the humans were not done. The relentless barrage of railgun projectiles continued, striking with pinpoint precision. One by one, the remaining ships of the council fleet were picked off, their shields already depleted, their hulls too fragile to withstand the impact. The overwhelming firepower of the human defenses, once dismissed as a primitive weapon, now seemed unassailable. As the last few council ships drifted into the void, their commanders faced a grim reality. This was not a retreat, it was a rout. The warships, once symbols of their unchallenged superiority, were now reduced to little more than drifting wrecks. The immense pride of the council, which had spent millennia spreading its influence across the stars, was now shattered. The humans had proven something that no one, not even the most cautious observers, had thought possible. A species considered primitive by galactic standards had not only fought back, they had defeated the might of the council's most powerful fleet. Within the scattered remains of the council ships, panic was palpable. There was no chance for victory now. The council had never envisioned a scenario in which they would be outclassed by a species they had once regarded as insignificant. No contingency plans had been made for this eventuality. The humans had not simply repelled the invasion, they had shown the entire galaxy that they were no longer to be underestimated. The idea of Earth as a defenseless planet, ripe for conquest, had been eradicated in the span of just a few hours. The humans had proven that they were capable of defending their world with a ferocity and creativity that rivaled the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. On the surface of Earth, the victory was celebrated in a subdued but determined manner. The battle had not been won without cost. Several of Earth's orbital stations had been damaged, and the humans had lost precious resources in the struggle. But the victory itself was undeniable. The invaders had been forced to retreat, their ships broken and their plans in ruins. Humanity had secured its place among the stars, a place they had only dreamed of a few short decades ago. For the Council, the consequences of their defeat were catastrophic. The fleet's survivors limped back into deep space, their shattered ships seeking refuge in the darkest corners of the galaxy. The commanders who had once believed themselves to be invincible now found themselves grappling with the loss of face and the devastation of their forces. Their failure on Earth would not be easily forgotten. The Council's reputation, carefully cultivated over millennia, had been shattered in an instant. The galaxy would remember how a fleet, capable of annihilating entire star systems, had been defeated by a race considered too young, too inexperienced to be a threat. In the aftermath of the battle, the Council's leadership was forced into a harsh reckoning. The humans had sent a message not just to the Council but to the entire galaxy: Earth would not be a pawn in the grand schemes of the powerful. Humanity had proven that it was capable of standing on its own, a force to be reckoned with in its own right. The era of the Council's unchecked dominance had ended, and a new chapter had begun. Back on Earth, the people, still coming to grips with the scope of their victory, could only wonder what the future held. For now, the immediate threat had been vanquished. But the victory came with a heavy price, the knowledge that humanity, though victorious, was now firmly in the crosshairs of the other galactic powers. The Council was not the only force in the galaxy, and while they had been humbled, others would be watching. The victory over the Council was not just a battle won, it was a declaration. Humanity had risen, and the stars were now within their reach. What would come next? No one could say, but one thing was certain: the age of human subjugation was over, and the galaxy would never be the same again. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sci-Fi Horizon Stories for more thrilling tales of science fiction and adventure. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sci-Fi Horizon Stories, because if humans can flip the script on an entire galaxy, who knows what jaw-dropping twists are coming next. Stick around because the adventure is just getting started, and you won't want to miss a single moment.